All eyes are in India as Prime Minister Narendra Modi heads to Russia for the 2024 BRICS summit in Kazan. The Prime Minister is scheduled to hold bilateral talks, with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, focusing on pressing global matters, alongside a meeting with Iran's President Massoud Pazekhishian. Before departing, the Prime Minister emphasized the importance of BRICS, stating that India values the platform for global cooperation. He's highlighted BRICS' growing relevance, calling the group's expansion beneficial for the global community, and also hailed special ties between India and Russia. The summit comes amid the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war and Middle East tensions, with Putin expressing gratitude for India's support and seeking peaceful solutions, referring to Modi as a friend and appreciating his concerns over the conflict.
Ambassador, what do we expect from the Prime Minister's visit? What's top on his agenda?
Prime Minister's visit is taking place for participation in the 16th BRICS summit, and there are a number of issues that BRICS is handling today. Economic development, furthering economic cooperation between the member states, cooperation for reforming the global institutions, including the Security Council, giving greater voice to the global South, handling climate change. These are some of the most prominent issues that the leaders are expected to discuss during the summit.
As far as India and Russia are concerned, the Prime Minister was here in July and then he subsequently traveled to Ukraine. He's met both the presidents. Is there some forward movement or likely forward movement on exploring a roadmap for peace in the region?
The issue has been discussed and spoken about. As you know, India has consistently held the view that the concerned parties need to engage and find a resolution to this conflict by dialogue and diplomacy. So I cannot prejudge what the leaders will talk, but I won't be surprised if this issue is also discussed.
Minister Narendra Modi attending the BRICS summit in Kazan to discuss economic cooperation, including trade in national currencies and sustainable development. Bilateral talks with President Vladimir Putin also aim to boost India-Russia trade, and this is what is expected. This alongside cultural exchanges and digital initiatives. He's in Russia for the BRICS summit, focusing on economic cooperation and other issues as well within the BRICS framework. Indian Ambassador to Russia Vinay Kumar highlighted India's commitment to this cooperation, noting the significance and the importance of BRICS as a forum. The Prime Minister also in fact put out on X and tweeted saying that he's leaving for Kazan to take part in the BRICS summit. India attaches immense importance to BRICS, and I look forward, he said, to extensive discussions on a wide range of issues. The Prime Minister has, in fact, stressed upon the importance of BRICS as a forum to discuss regional issues concerning all the countries involved. So what is India's agenda at the BRICS summit? Let's get you up to speed with that. Bolster influence in shaping global agenda, talks in Russia and Iran for regional stability. Also, importantly, address energy and security concerns. That too is on top of the agenda, especially involving Russia and Iran, and regional stability. That continues to be on the agenda as well. The other thing that is going to be discussed in this particular meet is obviously the economic growth and promote global governance reforms. That too is on top of the agenda as far as the summit here in Russia and Kazan is concerned. As the BRICS summit in Russia approaches, all eyes on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, with crucial bilateral meetings, especially a potential dialogue with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. India is poised to enhance ties in trade and technology. Our next report on what to expect from the 16th BRICS summit in Russia.
As the world turns its attention to the upcoming BRICS summit in Russia, all eyes are on India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. With key bilateral meetings on the agenda, significant focus will be on Modi's potential discussions with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the heels of a breakthrough along the LAC. Both India and China stand to gain from enhanced ties, especially in trade and technology. As the BRICS summit approaches, experts are looking to Prime Minister Modi to play mediator in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict.
The war in Ukraine is frozen. There are very few parties who have the credibility to talk to both sides. I would argue there are really only two leaders worldwide, Erdogan of Turkey and Modi in India. So if Prime Minister Modi were to propose some kind of situation where he acts as an intermediary and conveys messages from the Russians to the Ukrainians and vice versa, I think he could play a very constructive role, and I think it would be useful to do it. It would raise India's profile.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has acknowledged India's role in advocating for peaceful negotiations. India's position as a non-aligned power allows it to maintain cordial relations with both Russia and Western nations, making it the ideal pick for mediating this conflict. With the expansion of BRICS, India aims to solidify its status as a pivotal player in global politics. The summit marks a critical juncture for India as it positions itself as a bridge between diverse global interests. Bureau Report, India Today.
And discussions between Prime Minister Modi and China's President Xi Jinping are anticipated at the BRICS summit following recent agreements on patrolling arrangements along the LAC in eastern Ladakh. This agreement marks a breakthrough after 4 years of tension and deadlock in the region. Diplomatic and military negotiations over recent months have paved the way for this disengagement. Earlier standoffs in Ladakh, including patrolling Point 15, Gogra Hot Springs and the Galwan Valley, saw troops pull back and buffer zones created along the north and south banks of the Pangong Tso. However, disengagement at Depsang and Demchok remains pending. The possibility of a Modi-Xi bilateral meeting is uncertain, yet there is significant anticipation surrounding potential progress on critical geopolitical issues.
The Chinese side is wanting to restore the relationship between India and China to what it was earlier. It wants the other aspects of the relationship like trade, commerce, investment to move ahead. It will, of course, take some time to restore the trust between the two countries, but at least I think a beginning can be made, and perhaps there might be a meeting at the topmost level between the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, and the President of China, Mr. Xi Jinping, at Kazan in Russia. Now that the problems on the border along the LAC have been sorted out, I think there is a very high probability that our Prime Minister Modi, and the President of China, Xi Jinping, could have a bilateral meeting in Kazan.
India Today's Gaurav Sawant is in Russia's Kazan, bringing us exclusive details on the BRICS summit. In fact, joining us right now is Gaurav. The Thaw Gaurav in Ladakh, standoff coming just hours before the Prime Minister's visit as far as BRICS is concerned. You know, does this really mean now that decks have been cleared and all the groundwork has been done for Modi-Xi Jinping bilateral there?
It's very likely that the Chinese President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will have an interaction. They will be in the same room, and more than a pull aside, from what we've been told, that there is an effort from both sides to find common ground to move forward. The fact that the Chinese agreed to India's big ask that there has to be restoration of pre-2020, pre-May 2020 situation at all friction points, including Depsang and Demchok, which China calls a legacy issue that predates the 2020 standoff between India and China's agreed to it, shows that both sides are equally keen for one, normalization of relationship, forward movement, and which India had made very clear, whether it's Prime Minister Narendra Modi or the External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, they've articulated this on more occasions than one, that for forward movement in India-China relationship, there has to be peace and tranquility at the line of actual control. Only when borders are peaceful can this relationship move forward. and India stood our ground from 2020 till date. China initially thought that India will perhaps withstand one winter, 2 winters, but the third and the fourth winter, which is now approaching, remember, China is also finding it extremely tough to stay on those altitudes, to be there, because India's entire deployment wasn't just defensive. In some areas, and God forbid if the gloves are off, India's deployment was also very clearly indicative of the fact that India is not defensive, and India can do what it needs to do to protect our interests, and those QPQ or the quid pro quo operations on the Kailash Hills on the south side of Pangong Tso and dominating the Chinese Moldo garrison. It clearly indicated India means business. The deployment in the middle sector in Barahoti, the deployment in the eastern sector or in the eastern part of the country in Arunachal Pradesh, the Sela tunnel, the ramping up of infrastructure development all along the LAC, and the effort that's still on indicates that India wasn't going to buckle under Chinese pressure. And once China realized that, we're seeing some steps being taken towards normalization of relationship. But with China, India has learned one very difficult lesson. You don't go by what China says, you go by what China does on ground, and we will see how that disengagement translates into action on ground, whether it leads to de-escalation and ultimately de-induction of those 50,000 plus troops that have been massed on either side. Only when that happens will we see real normalization of relationship and perhaps India, China emerging as the two strong economies that very clearly the world was expected to see in the 21st century, being Asia's century.
Absolutely. Full de-induction of Indian and Chinese divisions along LAC theatres. This is a big, big challenge. Also, border meetings revert to information sharing rather than meeting up to do some sort of a damage control, which we've been seeing for a very long time now. Also, former recommitment to peace and tranquility agreement. They have to come back on the talking table, discussing the fact that they need to be peaceful and there has to be tranquility. Clear, fresh protocols on patrolling. This has to be worked out as well. India potentially reverses the punitive action on Chinese apps that it had taken as a way to send out a message to China at that point in time, and that decision has to see a reversal is what is going to be expected. India and China have agreed on patrolling and disengagement along the line of actual control in Ladakh. External Affairs Minister S. Shankar says India and China have gone back to what is the situation was the situation in 2020 before the Galwan clashes. Here's more.
Four and a half years after India-China border tensions flared up in eastern Ladakh, after China's massive and provocative deployment along the line of actual control, leading to violent clashes and a war-like situation. There's been a big thaw in the world's biggest military standoff. The Ministry of External Affairs has declared that India has reached an agreement with China for disengagement and for restarting border patrols.
Indian and Chinese diplomatic and military negotiators have been in close contact with each other in a variety of forums. And as a result of these discussions, agreement has been arrived at on patrolling arrangements along the line of actual control in the India-China border areas, leading to disengagement and a resolution of the issues.
The surprise announcement comes 2 years after India and China managed to disengage and pull troops back from the 2020 friction points, the Galwan Valley, Hot Springs and the Pangong Lake. But the agreement now being referred to alludes to two legacy friction points that date back to the previous government, the mutual blockades in Depsang and Demchok.
There were two friction points that existed before the Galwan problem. And these were cases where patrolling was blocked. Can we assume that these two friction points, the problems there, because both sides were blocking the patrolling, those problems have been eliminated?
So let me say it again. An agreement has been reached on patrolling arrangements along the line of actual control in the India-China border areas.
A resolution on this stubborn issue means the two countries have mutually decided to continue patrolling in the Depsang and Demchok areas, sectors where both sides have blocked patrolling routes of the other.
It will be good for both of us if we maintain peace and China does not carry on with this expansionist mindset and trying to create problem, as time and again they try to do it to surround India.
The effort is to ensure that they inform each other before going up to their respective claim lines. The claim lines remain, but a mechanism is being found to ensure there is no repeat of a Galwan type incident. And this indicates that India's strong stance has helped. All along, India said peace and prosperity at borders.
The breakthrough came ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Russia to attend the BRICS summit on Tuesday. There is, however, still suspense over the possibility of bilateral talks between Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping.
This is a multilateral event, though of course there is always a provision for bilateral meetings on the sidelines. We are currently looking into the overall program of the Prime Ministers. There are a number of requests for bilateral meetings.
Prime Minister, several bilateral meetings are being considered, and it is work in progress.
With Shivani Sharma in Delhi and Gaurav Sawant in Kazan, Russia, Bureau Report, India Today.